Transformation of Turkey into a British proxy. Modern Turkey was born in the 1920s as a result of the reforms of Kemal Atatürk. His policies, known as Kemalism, was aimed at modernizing the country and was based on 6 principles: republicanism, national state, nationality, secularism, state regulation, and westernization. The guarantor of maintaining Atatürk's course was the Turkish army. Since the main obstacle to the subordination of Turkey to British interests were the Kemalists in the Turkish army and intelligence services, they became the target of Richard Moore's attack. The British intelligence service's chief Turkologist and fluent Turkish speaker, Richard Moore, began his career in Turkey as an MI6 resident in the late 1980s. In 2014, he was appointed British ambassador to Turkey. In pursuing his goal, Moore played on Erdogan's ambitions for authoritarianism, Islamization, and the expansion of Turkish influence in the territories encompassing the Great Turan, the Turkic Belt, from Syria to the Volga region and China's Xinjiang. Richard Moore was helped to achieve his goal by the attempted military coup in Turkey on July 15, 2016. The suppression of the coup, accompanied by numerous human rights violations, worsened Turkey's relations with the United States and the European Union and led to Erdogan's international isolation. It was at this point that Richard Moore took advantage of the political instability to become a trusted confidant of the Turkish president. As Turkish journalist Ömer Güler notes, quote, "In the midst of the general alienation, Britain has emerged as one of Erdogan's strongest allies. Richard Moore was the only Western ambassador who was quick to back Erdogan's version of the coup, and the British government turned a blind eye to Turkey's serious human rights abuses since the coup was crushed." End of quote. According to Evgeny Gilbo, the failed coup was provoked by Moore with the help of Fethullah Gulen's opposition group. The purges in the Turkish army and intelligence services that followed the suppression of the coup allowed Moore to replace the Kemalists with people loyal to Great Britain and effectively subjugate the country's security agencies. It appears that Gilbo's version is close to the truth, because the following year, 2017, Richard Moore was awarded the Order of St. Michael and St. George for services to relations between Great Britain and Turkey. By turning Turkey into a British proxy, Richard Moore concentrated in his hands a huge influence that extended over almost all of Asia. Turkey, Qatar, the Muslim Brotherhood, and Hamas ensured British influence in the Middle East, while Turkic subversive groups opened up the roads to the Caucasus, Central Asia, the Volga region, Siberia, and China for Britain. Evgeny Gilbo notes, quote, "During his time as ambassador to Turkey, Moore effectively subjugated the country's intelligence services. He created a network system of sabotage groups promoting the ideas of Great Turan, the Great Ottoman Empire, and Islamism. This network operates across the vast territory of the Turkic Belt of Eurasia, from the Uyghur region of China through the Uzbek regions of Afghanistan to the Turkmen-populated areas of Syria. In addition, Moore managed to bring the special services and army of Azerbaijan under his control. Moore's main strength is the system of special services of the Turkic-speaking states and Turkic-speaking terrorist groups. Since the appointment of Richard Moore as head of MI6 in 2020, Turkish intelligence has become the main instrument for implementing British policy across much of Asia. We saw how they worked in Afghanistan, where they control a significant part of the Afghans. Not very tight control, but this control comes not from Ankara, but from London. We saw the situation in Kazakhstan when they tried to carry out a coup. We see a situation in Azerbaijan where, in fact, not only the special services, but also the army are no longer subordinate to the president and are directly controlled by Turkish officers, who ultimately report not to Ankara, but directly to Richard Moore. The war between Armenia and Azerbaijan that we know of, which ended in a strange game of give and take, is explained by the fact that both sides were controlled by London. The current president of Azerbaijan has allowed a situation where his armed forces and special services are controlled from London. It was Richard Moore who managed to bring Erdogan and the Turkish military political elite under control, who is the developer and executor of the policy that is perceived as Erdogan's policy. It is not that Erdogan is Moore's puppet, but rather that Moore is a provider of elegant solutions for Erdogan. Moore's goal is to use Turkey as an instrument of English policy in Central Asia, Afghanistan, and Iran. Of course, this kind of expansion leads to the depletion of Turkey's resources and its subsequent collapse. But Moore does not care much about this. A link to the article's source text is provided below this video. Thank you for your attention.